All right, so we are back here at another Sesameseed AMA, and we're very happy to have someone from the Harmony team as our special guest today. We have Nick White, who many of you may already be very familiar with. So let me just, before we get too far into this, introduce both Julian and Nick. So Nick, did you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you, Humpty and Sesameseed for hosting. I'm Nick White. I'm a co-founder at Harmony. And among many other things, I've been leading currently the integration of BUSD on Harmony. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about all things staking, which has really been the biggest focus for Harmony for the past 2 years, is launching the mainnet, having a live network that can actually support these use cases, like BUSD being one of the first ones that we're rolling out.
Excellent. And Julian, any words to start?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Julian. Super excited to be here with Nick. Talk all about Harmony and staking. You know, it's something I'm pretty passionate about, and we're all pretty excited about here. So I'm really looking forward to diving into some of the community questions, kind of what the future looks like, and how we're going to transition on.
Excellent. And like both of you mentioned, today's AMA really is to touch on everything staking. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about there. And there's a lot to talk about what we're doing together to achieve that on Harmony as well. So there's a few things we wanted to talk about before we got into about staking. And so before we got into that, can we talk about Harmony and introduce our audience about what it is, what its mission is, and some of the staking available on that network?
Yeah, sure. So Harmony, our mission is to scale trust. And what that means is, we see blockchain as sort of a trust machine. It's something that enables people to transact and to coordinate over the internet without having to rely on sort of third parties. So Harmony, the way that we scale trust, blockchains like Ethereum and Bitcoin demonstrated that this is a technology that matters and has a lot of potential impact, but was not really able to scale to the amount of throughput and cost as we would need in order to actually have the level of impact that the actual internet has had on the world. And so Harmony's vision is really to enable the infrastructure that will allow blockchain to reach the scale that it needs. And we do that by a very sort of sophisticated technology stack that includes proof of stake, which staking is one of the big topics that we're going to talk about today, and sharding. And sharding is something that allows the blockchain to be parallelized and increase the throughput without losing decentralization. So that's kind of the background, big background on Harmony. We started in June of 2018, and it's been about 2 years. And in May this year, we finally launched the first sharded staking network. And there's a big milestone for us. We feel that it's a big technical milestone for the industry. And so far, things have been going really well. We have about 50% of the total tokens staked. And now we're actually shifting gears to adoption. And what adoption looks like for us is experimenting with a lot of different kinds of use cases, but specifically ones that have to do with finance, DeFi, stablecoins, payments. And that's hence why I mentioned BUSD earlier, is that's one of our first cornerstone use cases that we're going after. We have a really rich community of which Sesameseed is a big part. Sesameseed has been with us for quite a while now as a validator, and has also been building a lot of stuff like support on the wallets. So there's a lot that we can talk about in terms of the collaboration between Harmony and Sesameseed. And I'm really indebted. I feel indebted to the Sesameseed community for everything that they've brought to the Harmony community and the Harmony protocol.
Thank you, and congratulations. Those are a lot of achievements already. We've obviously been following what's going on at Harmony, and we've witnessed a lot of growth in the short few months, I believe, since you first launched, and it's been exciting to do that together with you. Julian, did you want to introduce Sesameseed a little bit before we get started as well?
Sure. So Sesameseed is, I think that as you mentioned there, Nick, Sesameseed is a community. We started in 2018 with kind of a very focused goal, and that focus is around connecting the community to the blockchain technology. And as we know, this is a newer industry. It's an industry that's based around a technology, and fundamentally, the only reason that this industry exists today, the success of it, is going to be realized through the activity of the underlying community. These kinds of developments can't just happen in a vacuum, and so doing what you guys are doing there, Nick, by providing very novel and interesting solutions to more ethical staking methodologies, as well as much more efficient transactions and more efficient network speeds and capacities. All that does is it provides easier, smoother access to the underlying community that does support this technology and ultimately this industry. So I'm really looking forward to talking more about it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and I'll take this time to remind the community, anybody who's watching, that you can still continue to ask your questions, be it on YouTube, on Telegram, on Twitter. Submit your questions. We're going to be collecting them and answering as many as we can throughout the event. So we'll move on now and talk a little bit about what the primary topic is here, and that's about staking. Can we discuss some of the types of staking that is currently available, or the type of staking that is available on Harmony? Nick?
Sure, yeah. Well, first I also want to frame this. We tweeted about this maybe a couple days ago or maybe last week, but staking is an emerging, I would say, subcategory within the broader cryptocurrency, crypto asset space. So predominantly in the beginning, it was all proof of work, which is very energy intensive, and staking is something that's a lot more energy efficient, but it brings with it other challenges. So staking is kind of emerging now, and I believe the statistic is there's about $9.5 billion worth of assets staked in networks currently, and that keeps growing as more staking networks start launching, and the actual value of those staking tokens grows. So I think staking is a very cool trend to be a part of, and I think we're still at the very beginning stages of it. But at Harmony, in general, there's two ways that you can participate in staking. And well, first of all, you have to have the native token to participate, and you can either run a validator, meaning that you are running part of the infrastructure. It's kind of the equivalent to running a mining rig in Bitcoin or Ethereum. And then the other one is delegation. And that's the kind of the cool thing about staking, is that I think it allows broader participation. You don't have to be some guy with a warehouse and access to cheap electricity to participate. If you just hold the token, you have access to it, you can stake it to someone else, even if you don't have the expertise necessary. So validating and delegating are kind of the two big things. Julian also mentioned EPOS, which is our specific sort of staking bidding mechanism. And it kind of tries to solve problems related to staking, which is that the centralization of stake over time has been there's very frequent criticism to staking as a whole, in that the people who have the most tokens are the ones who earn the most rewards, and then over time you have kind of the centralization of wealth on the platform. So we designed a different mechanism that tries to favor the smaller stakers and allow them to earn more rewards and promote decentralization overall. So that's a big overview of staking on Harmony. And if people are interested in staking, they can go to our staking dashboard, which is staking.harmony.1, and you'll see a list of validators. If you want to become a validator yourself, we have documentation. Docs.harmony.1, you can click on validator and you can learn about what it takes to set up your own node. And we've designed it to be super easy for new people to onboard. Obviously, there's a whole sophisticated thing. I'm sure Julian and the rest of the Sesameseed team, as professional validators, can give a lot more insight into what it requires from a technical level. And then last, staking milestones for Harmony since our mainnet launch are, like I mentioned in the beginning, about 50% of our supply is now locked up in staking, which is, I think, a very strong indication that we have a loyal community that's committed to the long term of the project. And also, we're now currently expanding or planning to expand the number of seats from 320 to potentially 640. So as we add more seats, that means more nodes and more participation and more decentralization for our blockchain. But that's the basics of staking for Harmony.
That's great. Yeah, and I think, I can vouch for the fact that Harmony has done an incredible job in terms of their documentation. There's a wealth of information available on your website, and that's commendable. Julian, did you want to add a little bit about some of those staking processes on Harmony?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going off of, of our last conversation with kind of why we're here and what staking, really does for blockchain as a technology. Ultimately, you take a look at Bitcoin, and that was a proof of work system, and what that did is, when that came out, that really drove a very specific type of education, and that really drove people to be more educated in basically the hardware primarily, how to run that node in that way, how to make a more efficient rig, to operate more efficiently from that perspective. And staking now, this proof of staking methodology is definitely has definitely required that the community become more educated in terms of software and more the technology and the underlying protocol itself. And what's really interesting now about proof of stake is it's making that even more accessible by saying, hey, look, like you can delegate to somebody that does operate a proof of stake node. And what that essentially does is that's your entry point to the blockchain. So now you can take your tokens that you own and you can stake them to a validator, and then in doing so generate some kind of return. And what's so interesting about that is that becomes your first contact point with a use case of that blockchain. That becomes how you first touch a smart contract. You're doing transactions. You're starting to learn about sharding and these various on-chain technologies. And I think it's really interesting because it's a self-serving system in that way. You're educating your community at the same time as developing the use case of it. So it's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think this is a good opportunity to talk about some of the things that both Sesameseed and Harmony are doing together in order to achieve their goals, which are in alignment here, which is to get the community, the Harmony 1 token holders, to stake on chain. Julian, do you want to start talk a little bit about what some things that Sesameseed is doing today in order to get the community be actively involved in staking on Harmony?
Sure. So Sesameseed, I think, as most people out there know, operates as a professional validator, as Nick mentioned. The way that we operate is we provide node rewards in the form of our token, which is called Seed Token. So Seed Token was deployed on the Harmony blockchain, and essentially what we do is we take 100% of our node rewards that we receive and we put them into backing or the redeemable value of the Seed Token. So now every single Seed Token that exists or is in circulation is backed by one token. And in doing so, we can do a couple of very interesting things. For one, we can restake those one token very efficiently. So it does generate some kind of compounding on Seed very naturally. And we can make sure that essentially the token itself, the redeemable value of that token, is able to increase over time by minting fewer Seed token than we actually receive in node rewards, thereby increasing the redeemable value. So our focus is to obviously incentivize community participation. That's our number one thing that we're trying to do. And we, along with that incentivization, we do community education. So we help educate on the blockchain itself, and we also do some technology development as well by bringing in things such as the new token, wallet, various applications, and etc. So we're here to support Harmony's growth and support the interaction of the community and the Harmony ecosystem.
Excellent. Same question to you, Nick. Anything you'd like to add in terms of some of the cooperation that Sesameseed and Harmony are doing together to achieve that same goal of staking on the blockchain?
Sure. Well, I can say one thing, which is that the Sesameseed community and team are really experts in staking. This is hard-earned expertise because they have gone through this process with multiple other blockchains before Harmony. So actually, we've learned quite a bit from them throughout this process. So I have to thank them on that. And beyond the fact that they run a validator and they run actual infrastructure that helps secure and operate our network, they bring with them this community of people who are also very passionate about staking. Many of whom have come and joined and become integral parts of the Harmony community. So I think even though that's kind of a fuzzy thing, it's a very real, tangible benefit that has a massive impact for Harmony overall in the long term. Because as Julian was mentioning earlier, community is something that is very real. That at the end of the day, that's what decentralization is made out of: is real people that are participating, wherever they are. And beyond that, I mean, the other things that Sesameseed does, they bring a full stack of different things to add into the mix beyond just running a validator. They have their own staking wallet, which is Sprout, and they deploy a native token on our chain, which actually has turned out to become the first HRC20 token live on Harmony. So it's a milestone for us as well. And I'm also very impressed that Sesameseed has actually gone even further beyond that with other protocols, developing different kinds of network utilities and DeFi infrastructure. So there's a full range. Like, it doesn't just stop at just running a validator. Sesameseed is so much more than that. It's like its own kind of ecosystem, an ecosystem builder within the different chains that it works with.
Absolutely. I mean, being a part of the Sesameseed team and community as well, I can agree with that completely. That adding value to a blockchain has been a big part of the philosophy and the mission of this organization. So doing it on Harmony and doing it so effectively in Harmony is kind of no surprise, but it's also pretty exciting. There's a lot of firsts that we've been able to bring to the blockchain as well. Julian, I know that there's a few things here that Nick brought up in terms of some of the developments that were brought onto the Harmony blockchain. How do some of those developments contribute, like Nick said, to the securing of the blockchain and to the development of that blockchain as well?
So it comes down to kind of why we choose a certain blockchain, and ultimately it does take us some time to find a blockchain that does mesh well with our ethos as a community, and finding a team or a group that we can work with that's going to share our beliefs in what we think that this technology can mature into being. And it's sort of, as Nick said, that we don't just come in and operate a node. We come in with the intention of, hey, this is an ecosystem that we believe in. This is a token that we believe in, and we want to improve the value of that if we can. And we want to come in and, our community is going to be a very large holder of this token ultimately through seed. And we want to build on this chain to make sure that it has the utilities and the tools and the functions that the community expects. And in doing so, we can support that blockchain. So yeah, building is a huge aspect. Education, I'd say, is equally as big. And ultimately, the real foundation of that comes down to staking and providing that conduit to stake.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. So in terms of what each organization is doing to promote a healthy blockchain, I mean, we covered a lot of that already in terms of staking, development, securing the blockchain. Is there anything else that we can add to that topic in terms of how we are promoting a healthier blockchain through participation, through staking, through reward sharing potentially?
Yeah, well, I can add my 2 cents in, and that is that, at least in Harmony's case, what we've seen since the beginning of staking, even before staking was 100% live, but we had incentivized testnets and everything, is that it completely changes the dynamic of the community, because it's something for people to actually participate in and be a part of. And if you feel so much more connected and invested and involved in a project that you're actively doing something with. If you're running a validator, you're probably the most connected. You're listening, you're paying attention to the GitHub updates and any kind of network changes. You're probably in conversation with some of the core protocol engineers. Or if you're a delegator, you're very much tuned into the details of how the protocol works when you're delegating. Right? For our instance, it's very important for delegators to understand the EPOS model. And so it's kind of indirectly a tool for engagement that brings people in and keeps them there, and makes the community much more tightly knit. And it also gives us a lot of things to talk about. Like over the last few weeks, we've had some very deep discussions with our community about increasing the number of slots on our blockchain. And it makes everything real. It makes everything tangible. And I think that goes a long way towards making people feel connected and keeping them interested and involved.
Yeah, no, there's a lot I could add there, but Julian, I'm sure there's a lot you can add to that too. So please go ahead.
No, I think that you're right. That staking kind of becomes that entry point, because there is some degree of an educational barrier that does have to happen there. And although you guys have made it extremely easy and simple to stake by providing the wallets, the services, the dashboard to do so, that's an investment. That's an investment by a community to come in, and what they're doing is they're investing in the systems that are going to basically educate them down the line when applications come out. Because what's happening is they're talking to us or some of the other validators out there and saying, hey, how do I stake? And they're saying, this is the wallet that you need. This is the infrastructure that you need to have to basically do that. Oh, so how do I claim the rewards? How do I see this? How do I see the transaction? Where can I see my staking transaction? And what it's doing is it's putting the validator in the position of, hey, we're going to sit in between the blockchain and the community and basically work to educate them on those tools. So we're going to show them, hey, this is the block explorer. This is how that works. This is the staking dashboard. This is how that works. And guess what? Now when a developer comes up from the very community that we're starting to develop there, that community knows those tools. So when they're trying to call a smart contract, they have the plugin there. When they're trying to interact with some application, they know that the block explorer is there. And it's laying that framework for a very nice and sustainable ecosystem. So I fully believe in this. This is great.
Yeah, I think both of you touched on some very, very good points there. In fact, one of the things that really stuck out to me was the differences in the types of people that are involved in blockchain and cryptocurrency. Obviously, there's a variety of people, but there is one group that really does become like a stakeholder in your business, wanting it to succeed. And staking is almost like a mechanism to allowing them or enabling them to be a part of that success, right? You bring them in, and part of that comes through education. Part of that comes through utilizing all the different developments that you're building on your blockchain, the education, so that they can be part of that development itself. I think that is something that is really important, I think, to the success of a blockchain, and is why communities are such a great part of these blockchains. And like you mentioned earlier, Nick, and I think something that I commended to you for Harmony in the beginning was the amount of documentation of that type of engagement that Harmony is doing is important to the success of it, I think. And there's the forums, and I'm not sure how many in the community are aware of those, but there is a forum that Harmony, you share proposals, conversations, you try to feature community members, validators, where the community can be a bigger part of that process by being a part of those conversations too.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think Harmony is really doing an exceptional job of, and frankly, I'm not aware of other blockchains that are approaching it in this way. They have taken a extremely aggressive, hands-on approach at making sure that this blockchain stays decentralized, that the validators stay very well supported, and they can ensure that there's a very diverse group by making sure that the tools that are out there are very are very simple. They're supporting teams that are trying to build these tools, such as AutoNode and some of these things that have come out. But also, as you mentioned, these talk forums are fantastic because, as I said before, ultimately those validators become the education point for the community, and ensuring that you have a large group of those validators educating on different aspects of the blockchain is pretty essential to a sustainable chain. So they've done a fantastic job with that, and I commend you guys for that. And great.
Yeah, one last point I want to add to this is that the way that we think about it as the core internal team is we care very much about decentralization, because decentralization is not just a buzzword. It is fundamentally the core value that makes blockchain impactful, what makes it important, what makes it blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And so to us, we want to make ourselves obsolete. We want to, in the future, our measurement of success as a founding team or as a core internal team is, can we step away and will the blockchain still keep going? Will there still be community engagement? Will people still keep building apps? Will the ecosystem persist even without us? And if you look at Satoshi, that's exactly what he was able to do with Bitcoin. So, that's our mindset. We know it doesn't happen overnight, but that's our end goal, is to get there eventually. And the community is really the core of how that transition can happen.
That's fantastic. And, I really like the example that you set there in terms of decentralization and how you can arrive at that, and some success stories in the past in this space that have proven that it's possible. And, this is, to me, that's a very exciting goal to have. And I really do look forward to seeing the measures that Harmony takes in order to achieve that goal. Because I think that that's something that is coined as a marketing word, I think, many times. But you really wonder how many people are really working towards that goal, so that is at the forefront of your team, and in the type of engagement that it has, developments to achieve that. I think that's worthy of recognition and applause as well.
Cool.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of different topics here. We've asked the community to submit some questions. So if it's okay with you, Nick and Julian, unless there's anything else you want to talk about, we can kind of move to some of these questions and maybe take some of these live questions that are coming in as well.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right, great. So one of the first questions that came in was from one of the members on Telegram, KY101. His question was, when will the seed token be able to be seen on the Harmony Explorer? And is there an easier way to get your PK from the Explorer so users can interact with the seed earned? This sounds like a question that maybe both of you can tackle. Anyone want to take a crack at it first?
Well, I'll go for it, because Harmony is the one who's responsible for the Block Explorer. And we are currently working on building out HRC20 support on the Block Explorer. So when you send an HRC20 token, like seed, for example, or in the future BUSD, you'll be able to see exactly the breakdown of, like, this is the number of tokens that you sent and all that. Right now, the Block Explorer is not able to interpret that kind of smart contract transaction. So it just looks like kind of just like a random transaction. So we're working on it. In fact, the team said that the first version 1.0, was going to be ready today. So I'm going to follow up and after this call and see kind of where that's at. Again, I'm not promising that it's ready, but the first version, so we can test it and check it out, should be ready. So you will be able to soon see seed on the Block Explorer.
Cool. That's great. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right. Unless Julie, you wanted to add anything else to that, I can go to the next question.
No, I guess I can add a little bit to it. I think this is something that everybody kind of knows, but essentially interacting with the blockchain through a smart contract, Seed as a smart contract, it does record all of that data to the chain still. It's just a matter of visibility, which is exactly what Nick is talking about here, just making sure that that's visible. The next stage or the next step in that is going to be making sure that we can interact with it. So obviously, Sprout is the primary method to interact with the Seed smart contract today by doing transfer, send, receive kind of functionality. And future tools will come, such as the integration of smart contract transactions with the plugin and other wallets, etc.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Well, we have another question here. My man K's, and it basically revolves around the Harmony Grant Program. June, did you want to talk a little bit about this in terms of the Harmony Grant Program and some of the possibilities that Sesameseed or Harmony can have in interacting with that?
Sure. So I know Harmony had a pretty recent announcement regarding the grant program there. I think I'll let Nick talk more about that. But essentially, from our perspective, this is fantastic because this allows us to basically come in and kind of leverage some of the knowledge that we have, some of the specializations that we have around smart contracts, and some development to focus on core things that can be built here. There's some larger scale concepts or DeFi concepts that can be constructed on Harmony, which can be done in a very unique way. And from my perspective, I think that the best thing that's kind of out there is there are some features of Harmony that make it a very efficient blockchain to operate on that can be leveraged by building very, very interesting DeFi related concepts. And that's something that we certainly want to do. Oh, I think you're muted, Humpty.
So that's fantastic. Sorry about that. So in anything that you wanted to add about the Harmony Grant Program, Nick?
Sure, yeah. So if you want to learn more about Harmony grants, go to harmony.one/grants. There's a doc there that will explain to you kind of the mission behind it, different examples of grants that we would be looking to fund, and also a template for the application if you want to submit it. And but I'll go into kind of the idea of it. So at the very beginning, the Harmony sort of token table, there is a large portion set aside for ecosystem development and protocol development. And so these tokens are there specifically to fund people to build applications and tooling and real adoption on the chain, as well as to continue the development of the core protocol with new features like privacy or all the different kinds of the whole array of different ways in which we want to continue to upgrade and improve the protocol, because that the technology never stops getting better. So the grants program is our way of leveraging those tokens and putting them in the hands of our community and our developers that want to take Harmony to the next level, whether on the application layer or on the core protocol. So we have a few different tiers of grants right now. So there's sort of the smaller ones at 25K, larger one at medium one at 50K, and the largest one at 100K. But then we can also talk about sort of larger, potentially larger grants depending on the team and what their aspiration is. But we really care about people thinking of, at least on the application layer, about creating something that will actually drive utility of the network. So that's transactions, bringing more users on board. So we want to be very tangible. I think that while we do want to encourage a lot of exploration and experimentation, we also want to make sure that it's practical, because I think one of the faults of other grant programs is that a lot of money kind of gets wasted. So we want to be practical and pragmatic. But the idea is really to encourage our developer community to start growing, right? if Harmony ourselves was the one spending all those tokens and just trying to build everything directly, we'd never be able to scale, and we would again continue to be centralized. So this is our way of decentralizing our development, decentralizing our application ecosystem. And specifically, we're really keen on seeing people building DeFi or finance related applications, as we've seen a huge growth in demand for that on Ethereum. And we feel that Harmony has lower transaction fees, faster settlement times, and a lot of advantages that may make DeFi actually more practical, especially specific use cases. We're really looking into, for example, payments, cross-border payments right now, with BUSD coming online. So if anyone's out there listening and you're keen on building something and trying out this very new sharded proof of stake architecture, you're part of something very cutting edge, then do reach out, and even if you don't have necessarily a grant in mind yet, get in touch with us on Discord, and we're happy to start pointing you in the right directions and give you like the background. And then as far as Sesame is concerned, Sesameseed has already done a lot of things that are sort of related to the grant program in terms of building a wallet, deploying a smart contract like Seed, for example. And there's even some new ones that we're talking about that I think we may announce in the future. But Sesameseed is kind of like, I would say, a very good role model for the grant program, even though they were doing a lot of these things before the grant program was even initiated. So thanks so much to the Sesameseed community, honestly.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Humpty. No, go ahead, Humpty.
All right, great. So I was going to move on to the next question here, and that, without giving too much of the specific details of this person, I think we can kind of get the gist of this and get an answer here. It's from Olakunle Jamyu from Twitter. They're basically asking why the expected return keeps fluctuating on Harmony. So maybe we could talk a little bit about the process, the system, and why things change.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we've taken very seriously in our development of open staking has been the fact that there are multiple layers that we have. We don't just build the core protocol and then that's it. There's actually a lot of other layers that have just as much impact. One of those is the staking dashboard that we built. And if you're interested in checking it out, again, staking.harmony.one, you can go there and see all the different validators in the network. As a delegator, you can load in your coins and actually delegate them to specific validators. So anyway, we put a lot of effort into designing that dashboard because it's one of the primary ways that people are currently interacting with our blockchain. And there are different stats there. One of the really important ones that help sort of define the different validators on the platform. One of them is the APR, or rather like the annual estimated staking rewards that you'll get by staking with this validator. And so that's kind of what this question is about, is why is that number fluctuating? And the thing is that the way we calculate that is already a kind of a point of contention, or not contention, but there's people that different methodologies, right? And so it's hard to be fair because on the one hand, the APR changes every epoch, but on the other hand, to have a fair kind of comparison amongst validators, there needs to be some average over time, because someone could have a very high one this epoch, but actually over time they haven't been that effective. So anyway, the reason that it's been changing is because it's a time window average. And right now, when the protocol first launched, the APRs were very high because there was very few tokens staked. So now that there are more tokens staked, the APR is much lower. So at the beginning, it was even like, I think 100% APR. Now it's come down to, I think, around 11%, because we went from a few 100 million tokens staked to now we have 3 billion. So the rewards are the gross rewards are the same, but the percentage is lower. So anyway, that's why you're seeing the yield kind of decreasing over time, is a result of that time window average kind of moving towards the new 11% staking.
It's a cool number because it's complex, as you mentioned. My understanding, I could be wrong, just tell me that I'm wrong if I am. But my understanding is it's basically just rewards across amount staked. And that's basically it. But rewards is complex because it's based on a lot of factors. It's based on the uptime. It's based on the uptime of that validator. It's based on the number of keys that validator operates, and it's based on when it joined the validation. I don't want to say pool, but when it became a validator as well. So it's a very interesting composite number, and I think that you kind of touched on a good point here, which is it's fluctuating now. Over time, it's going to be a really reliable number to look at, I think.
Exactly. Perfect point. Yeah. We're still in we're in the first month of launching staking. So things are still kind of settling out and averaging out. So give it a little time, and then I think the APR will be more reliable.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you both. That's actually a great answer, and you both collaborated on a really great point there. So thanks so much. There's a question here that I think both Sesameseed and Harmony can tackle together, and this question is about DeFi. The question is, in terms of DeFi being a hot topic in blockchain, can you share your opinions on DeFi, and how do you think that will disrupt the existing financial system? Nick?
Actually, Julian, do you want to take this?
Sure.
I just realized my laptop's about to die, so I'm going to go run and get my charger really quick.
You got it.
All right, I'll be right back.
No problem. So DeFi, I think, is a really interesting concept right now, because you take a look at what DeFi is, and essentially it's the ability. It's going to provide the ability for people that own various crypto assets to generate some sort of return by some methodology. Essentially, it's very much like in parallel to, or I should say, it's a very nice supplement to staking, because DeFi is going to really open up the ability for individuals to make better use of their current assets. So just like you put money into a bank, and that bank loans it out and generates some interest rate and gives you a little bit of that, you can kind of cut out the middleman here and basically take on a more direct path there and maximize your use there. So DeFi is cool, because I think it's another door, or I should say it's another avenue for people to make the most of their current assets. I think it's going to be disruptive. I think it's very cool. I think this is exactly what Bitcoin and this whole concept set out to basically be a part of decentralization. You really owning your crypto assets, and I think it's a great supplement to staking.
All right. And then anything that you wanted to add, Nick, to this, or we can go to the next question?
Yeah, I would really love to add on. I think, to me, what DeFi is all about is programmable assets. And that's kind of a vague term, but if you think about what smart contracts enable you to do, like we started with just cryptocurrencies, right? Like that's what Bitcoin was. And definitely there's scripting on Bitcoin, but doesn't have the richness as like Solidity or the sort of the newer smart contract platforms like Harmony. And what the smart contract aspect enables you to do is to take that now decentralized value, tokenized value, and plug it into an ecosystem of different applications that provide automated, trustless financial services. And the real magic of that is that there's more complexity. Like not only are we going to be able to do things that are more automated, they remove the counterparty or third sort of middleman, but they are also going to enable us, like think about how much more things you can do with a digital document or digital information than you can do with like a physical document or physical information. It's that same kind of transition that I don't think we can really fully grasp yet, how revolutionary this is going to be. But you're seeing the beginnings of it on at least Ethereum with all these really cool lending pools or automated market makers. There's just a whole sort of Cambrian explosion of different apps that all plug into each other, and they allow a user to generate more yield on their assets, enable financialization of things and leverage and trading. And I think we're just going to see more and more complexity emerge and more cool use cases come out of it. So that's why I think DeFi is really a very important topic for all blockchain.
Cool.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. So I think we're kind of getting close to the end here. So let's take 2 more questions. I think there's a question here that's specific to one of the things that's unique to Harmony right now, and that is that it's the first sharded proof of stake blockchain to launch open staking. And the question is, how does Harmony solve for security, scalability, decentralization, and interoperability?
Yeah, so, he mentioned the quadrilemma, which is something that our founder, Steven, talked a lot about last year. And the quadrilemma is actually, so it started with the trilemma, which people may or may not be familiar with, but Vitalik posed this trilemma, which is security, scalability, and decentralization, that you can choose at most 2 out of those 3. But then as people started working on that problem, different solutions emerged, and sharding and proof of stake combined is one of, I think, the most anticipated solutions to that. I'm not saying that it's solved, but I think that it achieves a very good balance of the 3. But then we realized that there's also kind of a 4th pillar to that, which is privacy. Because in order to make blockchain more useful or actually real, you need to have some element of privacy. And I'm not saying that we need to be strictly private like Zcash or Monero, but it is a little bit of a problem if everything is 100% public. I mean, privacy, GDPR, all these things are very hot topics around the world. And imagine if all your financial information was completely public. So it's a similar kind of problem that we need to solve. And I think the most promising solution is this concept of auditable privacy. It's still very early on, but it's a way of using zero knowledge proofs to reveal specific pieces of data to other people, so that they can audit you and check what's going on without you having to reveal all the details of your various transactions or activities. So that's kind of the quadrilemma. And to be honest, Harmony has, I think, done a really good job of tackling the trilemma, but the quadrilemma is something that we're just now getting into, and it opens up a whole new array of technical challenges. And that's why we have a lot of grants available for protocol developers to try to help build zero knowledge proof functionality and things like that on Harmony. So if you're one of those people that is fascinated with this problem, please talk to us, because we would really love to work with you and fund you to actually help build this on Harmony.
Thank
really
you.
Cool. So
yeah, that's really strong.
So I really love that you brought up the concept of privacy, because I think that that's extremely relevant in the world that we live in today. I think it's extremely important. And it was obviously one of the core concepts of where this industry came from. It's like mentioned in the Cypherpunk manifesto, I think it is. But I think privacy is a very different thing from anonymity, and I just want to just mention that briefly. In that, to be private is the ability to choose to be anonymous, and I think that that's so important, because you take a look at cash, just like fiat paper currency. I'm not talking about credit cards, but actual cash could be considered a private currency, and it's private because if you have $5 or if I do, that $5 is $5. But if you're paying it with a credit card, suddenly you've put some arbiter in between you and the servicer that can discriminate. And fundamentally, you cannot discriminate a private transaction, because as you're mentioning here, it comes down to a disclosure thing, and I think it's extremely important that, you know, the currencies of the future must be something that can hold true to some of these privacy concerns. And, you know, frankly, fiat is going away from that, you know, with credit cards and putting these large corporations between you and your cash fundamentally do break down some of your privacy. And, you know, it's dangerous to have that in place. And I think that's a solution to a very real concern that cryptocurrency is tackling. So I'm all for it. I love the concept of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add, I think one of the first things that Sesameseed first talked about in its core values, privacy was in there, and I think was a big driver or motivator for the things that Sesameseed was building and for engaging the community and, you know, to becoming what it is today. So that's definitely something that's been there since the beginning, and I'm sure something that continues to be very important to Sesameseed as well. The last question is something that's asked for Sesameseed, but actually I think that this is a good question to kind of close it out for both teams. And the question is, what future do you see for Seed and Sesameseed, or for now we'll ask for both teams, and what future do you have for them, and where do you see the project in 5 years?
Cool. So
Julian, did you want to start?
Sure, I can start, and then you can wrap it up, Nick. So basically, you know, Sesameseed, as I mentioned, started about 2 years ago, almost exactly, as a community concept, and from there it's grown, and we've found kind of our path forward into the future here. And I think that ultimately what Sesameseed is it's a community representative in a world where, you know, blockchain is a major technology, and, you know, we kind of seek to be that community voice. We kind of seek to uphold those kind of decentralized and privacy focused concepts. And I think, you know, it comes down to 5 years from now, where do we stand? I think that what we have the potential of being here is, you know, a very large representative on blockchains such as Harmony, and a community that's there and can kind of hold true to the community concepts and core beliefs that may not be in line with other organizations. You know, ultimately, Sesameseed's success is perfectly in line with that of our community, because the way that we generate funds, the way that we operate as an organization, is based on how successful how successful our community is, how active and how large that they are, directly impacts the ability for us to operate, considering that our ability to operate comes from a percentage of node rewards. So I think it definitely aligns our interests with those that vote for us, and I think that it's a path into a fruitful success. So
great. Nick, same question. Where do you see Harmony in 5 years?
Great question. Well, it's crazy to think about what Harmony will be like 5 years from now, because we only started about 2 years ago, and the amount of growth and change that and progress that we've made has been hard to wrap my head around. So I feel humbled at trying to predict where we might be in 5 years, but I do know that certain things will not change. As I mentioned, decentralization is very core to us. So I hope that in 5 years we are far more decentralized, with, you know, really running things like with public governance by the community. That's the way that, you know, different grants are allocated and funds are spent. I hope that we have thousands of validators around the world, and hopefully many more shards than just 4, which we have today. And I hope that we have a rich developer community, people who, again, I hope that our SDKs and documentation for developers is amazing, as you guys said, our validator documentation is, which I really appreciate. But I hope that we have a group of people who are passionate about building on Harmony, and that we've delivered real value to the industry by building this scalable blockchain architecture. And I hope that what will have enabled is to have mainstream apps that people are using, and they may not even realize that it's blockchain, but there's some feature of blockchain embedded in it that makes it that much more functional for the end user, or that much more engaging. And so again, that's super broad, but that to me is success for Harmony in 5 years, is decentralization of governance, decentralization and of like validators, growth in applications and developers, and real adoption of real use cases, whether that's DeFi and cross-border payments that we've been talking about a lot today, or who knows, maybe it's, you know, new kinds of social platforms that leverage, you know, I'm really excited to see Reddit using a token. I think that there's a lot of ways in which not only is community important to blockchain, but blockchain can be very important to building online communities. So I think that's really where I see Harmony going in the next 5 years.
Cool.
Excellent. Thank you. That's a really great overview. I think a really great recap of everything we talked about today, and a fantastic potential forecast of things to come. I want to thank you, Nick, so much for joining us, taking time out of your day to participate in this AMA. I think that this is an amazing opportunity to engage the community in a very real way, where they can get to learn a little bit more about, you know, Harmony and the people that work there. Same to you, Julian. Thank you so much for joining and being a part of this. If people want to learn more about Harmony, Nick, where can we find more information?
Great question. So we are on Telegram at Harmony_1. That's our Telegram community. We also have Twitter, Harmony Protocol, one word. And our website obviously is harmony.one. And from there, you'll be able to find all the other links. But again, I just want to say thank you so much for hosting me. I will come on anytime Sesameseed wants me to join. I just really love you guys and love your community. So it's been a real pleasure today.
Thank you so much. And you know, we'll put all those links in the description below, so feel free to click on those and learn more about Harmony. There's so many more things that we have planned, including some initiatives and campaigns coming up as early as tomorrow, where we are continuing to push towards staking, which that's our primary goal, both for Sesameseed and for Harmony. So keep a lookout for that. I'm sure it'll be shared both on the Sesameseed and Harmony social media. And with that, thank you so much to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. See you, Julian.
See you, man.